So, just how important is that morning cup of coffee? For many of us, with our crazy lives and hectic schedule, the extra push from caffeine in the morning is exactly what our bodies crave. But unfortunately, we're often pressed for time or motivation, and we have to resort to spending ridiculous amounts of money for a morning cup of joe. There is, however, a method of brewing that will give you the quality and class of an Italian cafe, but right in your own kitchen and in just under 5 minutes. Now, I've grown up in a family of ridiculous caffeine aholics. They're crazy, and I've been drinking coffee since before I can even remember. So, adopting this method of brewing coffee was quite the big deal for me. But now that I'm hooked on it, I don't have any intention of ever going back to traditional drip coffee. So, if you haven't guessed yet, today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a deliciously decadent cup of coffee using a French press, or a press pot as it's sometimes called. And in order to efficiently demonstrate, I am going to first list all the materials needed and then go over the instructions themselves. And then, while the coffee is brewing, I'm going to go over some of the pros and cons associated with using the French press. So, let's start by looking at the materials needed. The beans, of course, the coffee grinder, the press pot itself, a spoon for stirring as we pour in the water, favorite mug, and then, of course, the boiling water. So now that we've looked at the materials, let's move on to the process itself. So I recommend using whole beans and grinding them yourself to give it like the best freshness. So I already ground the beans because it can be really loud and I wanted to save your ears. So the first step is to put the grounds into the pot. I usually use about a heaping, 1/4 of a cup for the 4 cups of coffee. So just pour that in there. The next step is to pour in the boiling water. And you're going to want to stir it or swoosh it around just so that everything is saturated by the water. Nothing stays dry. Fill it all the way up about an inch to the top. And then set this aside. Place the lid on top. Don't press down yet though because we need to wait for it to brew. So while we wait for this to finish, I will go over some of the pros and cons associated with using the French press. So some of the pros is the taste, of course. It's much deeper, smoother. I think it's even more earthy, which I really like. So a lot of people think the taste is phenomenal. Also, since you're using a wire mesh filter instead of a regular paper filter, some of the oils from the beans, the natural oils, will be able to infuse into the coffee more, and it makes it much smoother. Also, there's no paper taste from the paper filter, which some people really don't like that at all. And then, also, there's no messy, gunky buildup in a coffee pot, and when you're done, you can just stick the whole thing in the dishwasher. Some of the cons are, however, that some of those natural oils can be very acidic and harsh on sensitive stomachs, so you want to be careful if you have a sensitive stomach because that could bother a little bit. Also, since the grounds are sitting right there in the water, it can be very bitter after about 20 minutes, so you'll want to drink it within 15 to 20 minutes after starting the brewing process. There's also, because of the mesh filter, there will be some siltiness in the bottom of your cup, and you're not going to want to take that last sip, even though it'll be tempting, but it will be kind of gritty. So you just want to avoid that. So now that we've gone over some of the pros and cons, our coffee should be done brewing. We didn't make the full 4 minutes today, but that is the optimal time. So the final step is to press down the plunger completely. You want to do it slowly so that none of the grounds escape. So press this down, and we'll continue pressing down until it reaches the bottom. And then, at that point, the coffee is done. And that's it. That's how you make a phenomenally perfect cup of coffee. And so, there it is. Today, we looked at making the perfect cup of coffee with the French press pot. And, yeah, it's beautiful. We went over all the materials needed. We went over the instructions themselves, and then I went over some of the pros and cons associated with this brewing process. So, whether you're a coffee rookie or an addict such as myself, Don't think you've had the full coffee experience until you've tried this brewing method, as it could potentially change your morning routine and your coffee enjoyment forever.